This week on Women Who Rise, I'm joined by Chelsea Wright, entrepreneur, business coach, and founder of Prosper Real Estate Group and Renegade TC. Chelsea shares how she let go of her minimum to climb the right mountain and how women can lead with emotional intelligence, resilience, and alignment, even in male-dominated industries. If you've ever felt caused or called to rise higher in business, life, and leadership, you won't want to miss this episode. Stay tuned. Hi, this is Heather Mansy with Women Who Rise, the success podcast for ambitious women. Today, my special guest is Chelsea Wright, owner of Prosper Real Estate Group and Renegade TC, supporting women-led and focused coaching initiatives. Chelsea Wright is an entrepreneur, business coach, and the founder of those two companies mentioned. Known for her bold leadership and emotional intelligence, she helps women build aligned, sustainable businesses without sacrificing their well-being. Chelsea has been featured on podcasts and stages, speaking about resilience, habit stacking, and climbing the right mountain to your purpose. With a passion for empowering women in business, she blends tactical expertise with soulful guidance to help others rise. And I am so grateful to have her here with us today. Welcome, Chelsea.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here. Thanks, Heather.
You're welcome. So you and I were just speaking a little bit about, your passion for data-driven, coaching and guidance for others in business. Can you talk a little bit about what that means and what is data-driven, looking to overcome or be aside from?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing that I see, especially in real estate coaching, is there is this rhetoric about enjoying the journey or falling in love with the journey. But then in the same breath, there is this disgust or disdain for when somebody else's journey is at the beginning versus where they are today, where the coach or the person who succeeded is today. And so it's almost like people forget where they started. They forget that they weren't doing 20 contacts immediately. They forget that they didn't go to the gym at 5 a.m. 5 years ago. They forget that it took a few failed relationships to land the marriage of their dreams. They invalidate the journey while preaching that the journey and the daily habits are all that matter. And so when I talk about data-driven decisions, I've coached to a space where awareness comes first. Awareness comes first. What are we actually doing with our time? How many conversations are we actually having? When you're looking at your fitness, how many macros are you actually consuming? Like, what is the actual data? Where is the baseline? Where are we building from? And then where do we want to go from there? What's realistic, right? So this helps in both sense of the space that I occupy, because when you're working with buyers or you're working with sellers, oftentimes they're so focused on the goal that they forget the data. They're like, my house needs to be worth $750,000 so I can pay off my kids' college, and so I can get to the next house, and so I can blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, but what happens if it's not? What happens if it's not worth that amount of money? Or when you're working with a buyer who's like, man, if interest rates were just cheaper, then I could be able to afford X, Y, or Z. Okay, what happens when interest rates come down and then prices go up? Is it a matter of affordability, or is it a matter of you not being satisfied with the financial reality of where you're at today? So the data really helps us pull back the emotions, but it also gives us a place to build from that I think is really sacred and special and nerdy.
I love that you ended that with nerdy.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's perfect. Because, and I've seen you on stage. First of all, I just think, what you're up to is phenomenal. I think it's incredible all that you are doing. And it's not lost on me that you are a younger woman in a business space who is carving out this current reality for yourself. And you must have had to go through some iterations of that to get to where you are today. And I want to kind of circle back a little bit on what you said regarding how it helps your clients and how also you're able to help, both your buyers and sellers and your coaching clients with what I can tell is very realistic talking, very realistic way of explaining things and being able to get to the heart, but also always falling back on something linear, which is provable, which would be statistical fact. And I think that that is incredible. And I think there's not enough of that in the world today. One of the questions that I wanted to ask you first is, your entrepreneurial spirit clearly runs deep. Can you take us back maybe to your very first job or earliest memory of building something of your own, and what did it teach you maybe about your own sense of ownership or impact in that?
Yeah, so there's all of these memes about millennials and how we've lived through the most out of like any generation. And
Mhm.
I graduated in 2008 when the job market was just like, at its peak. Like people were hiring. I'm being sarcastic. 2008 was absolutely trash.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I was caught in this position of growing up extraordinarily poor and without a whole lot of control or consistency in my life, and finally being an adult and finally being in a position to do something about it. But the economy and the job market wasn't supporting my desire for independence. It wasn't supporting my like income needs. And so I started a dog walking company right at like 17. I started Walk Right Dog Walkers. I had Googled how to build a website. I had an intake form. Whenever they filled out the intake form, I would like do research on that type of breed, do research on what that breed, like the typical problems are, what are the obstacles that our clients are facing. And then I would show up to the appointment and I would sell them on my services. And like I would act like I've known everything about Great Danes forever. And I think that that was like my first venture into where there's a will, there's a way. And I had other jobs like throughout, my young life of like worked at Starbucks. I was a waitress. I was a bar manager. Like I did a bunch of other things. I sold insurance for a while. Um, but I am my happiest when I am the most accountable for my outcome. And so I think
Mhm.
that entrepreneurship for me is just this it's this double-edged sword of freedom and accountability because I grew up in a very chaotic household, and so having the freedom to control my own chaos, like that is what I need personally.
That's fascinating that you say that, because I do think, I've known and met and even had family members and had chaotic experiences myself where this is something that can really color how you see the world, not just that, but how you operate on a daily basis. And I think when it comes to having good habits, having discipline, having regularity, all of these things kind of feed into success. And it's not to say that there isn't a crazy artist, living inside of all of us, but it is to say that if you have a chaotic upbringing, you know, any number of things that require you to have structure or to think about yourself within the reality of structure, I think is massively meaningful, because you're creating that for yourself going forward, and having a dearth of it from the beginning is something that you will have to fight against. So instead of having a boss that says, do it this way, which may work for some people, you're saying, I'm the boss, I'm fully accountable, I'm going to do things this way. And this is, in fact, what's going to help me get there better, is just being conscious of the fact that I am in charge of and authoring those decisions and those concepts from the get go. That is really powerful. Did you I was curious, did you always envision yourself operating at this level of influence? I mean, I've seen you on stages with, hundreds of women in the crowd. Or was there maybe a single decision, a shift, perhaps, or a mountain moment that got you, sort of catapulted into this decision of being more in the public eye?
I think to an extent, I've always, how do I say this? I think I've always felt responsible for my presence. And
Mhm.
so I think that from a young age, my mom used to tell me that it's not what actually happened, it's what was perceived. And that in and of itself is like a whole therapy session. But I kind of grew up with that
That was
mindset
amazing.
of like it's actually not my job to care about how things are perceived.
So you were just talking about that quote. It's not what happened, it's how it was perceived. And I just really thought that was fascinating. Can you tell me a little bit more about kind of how that originated?
Yeah, my mom used to say that I was like way too big for my britches. And so growing up really young, I was labeled like an old soul. But mostly I was just too direct for my own good. And I said things clearly, I saw things clearly, and it challenged a lot of authority figures in my life. And so when growing up, I became very aware of how my presence isn't missed. Like the
Mhm.
smallest things that I do make the biggest impact, whether that's like walking to the office with low energy or if it's showing up to a social gathering and being negative, like my energy for whatever reason bleeds. And it doesn't, I don't have the luxury of people being unaware of me. That just has never been true for my life. And so I think that to an extent, at some point I had to embrace that and I have to embrace the responsibility of being noticed, embrace the responsibility of a big personality, embrace the responsibility of being the person that people look to for leadership, whether I'm qualified or not. And that has made me very accountable, but also aware of all the ways in which I need to grow as a leader, all the ways that I need to grow as an influence, all the ways that I can't just pop off. Like that's not
Mhm.
something that I can personally get away with because it creates more damage that to my community, to the people who trust me, to the people who've you know, given me their attention. And so for that reason, I think that growing as a leader or growing in public speaking just kind of came naturally because I became highly intentional, not just with my energy, but with my words. And words in real estate, I think are underappreciated. Like we quite literally build empires, we build families, we build wealth, we build communities with the things we say.
Mhm.
And there are very few jobs that are this accountable to the communication. And so I just got really fascinated and really interested with the like linguistic piece of it that then fed the like desire to become a public speaker and the desire to use my words to change lives or make an impact or better somebody's day even for an hour.
And this actually makes me think a little bit about something that you said about cutting ties with your minimum. It's
Hmm.
a message that you've created and spoken about a little bit, and I can see very clearly in everything that you've said, you've had to go through that process. What does that look like for people that you've coached, for example, or helped?
Yeah. Heather, girl, I keep going through the process. Like, just when you think you figured out what your minimum is, a new one
Mhm.
slides in and goes, "Are you sure about this? Is this enough? Like,
Yeah.
is this where you want to be for the rest of your life?" And so,
Mhm.
for my coaching clients, really, it is about them identifying what are the minimums in their life, whether that is the lack of boundaries they've set with their clients, or I have people who reach out to me to get sober, or people who are neglecting their personal health because their professional requirements are too great. Like their minimums look different for every person, but it's that like nagging thing that is in the back of your mind where you're just like, man, is this really what I deserve? Like, is this really what I'm comfortable with? Is this really what the rest of my life is going to look like? And so, like, it's a constant unlearning. It's a constant courageousness that is required to, one, fight for your maximums, believe that you're worth your maximums, but also become a person whose maximums are constantly evolving and expanding, and being okay with not everyone going on that journey with you. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's incredible. And it really made me also think about just the fact that that is a moving target. That is something that you can only adapt to one version of you for so long before that's also now going to be perhaps either not enough to fill your cup, or maybe you're sliding back into something that maybe was a way of being that served you in another moment, or maybe you're just up to so much more. Personally, I can say, both of my parents have now passed on, and this is, a recent reality. And as that being the case, there's a lot of that concept about, well, what is the rest of my life like? What will that look like? Because I'm the age they were, 20 years ago, and
Hmm.
now, they've departed this earth. So it's really interesting. It kind of puts, sort of a laser eye on maybe your dreams, your, whatever realities you're up to. And I think this can be true for anyone at any pivotal moment in their life. Like you said, graduating high school and starting in the workplace is also a pivotal moment. And that, it could be a change of a job, it could be getting married, it could be having children, it could be deciding to buy or sell real estate, actually, because we do,
Yeah.
like you said, what we do is important. We actually get very granular about being involved in people's lives and being able to help sculpt what's going to happen next and add value wherever we can. And I agree with you. There's a big space, almost a vacuum, where you can add value that we're not always seeing. And so it's so wonderful to see that you're up to that. So you mentioned, also, I know in the past, basically on your mindset first coaching, you've talked a little bit about habit stacking and some other things. I also wanted to find out, what are the things that you kind of do or engage in or maybe coach to, that allows you to rise every day and be who you are at your best performance?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much as far as establishing new habits that I try to adopt a like beginner's mindset frequently. Like when I find myself getting into a rut or feeling like I haven't grown in a moment or like I've plateaued, I try to seek out like a new uncomfortable skill. Or maybe a skill that like I haven't tapped into for a while. And so that's one thing that I think helps keep me sharp as a coach is that I never, I think coaching is such a challenging life calling because I am not under any delusions that I have it all figured out.
Yeah.
And I am not even the number one producer in Portland, Oregon.
Hmm.
And I am not like I've spoken on stages of sure, but I'm not even the highest paid speaker, right? So like there is always room to be better. And being a coach, if your focus is on living a uh unreproachable life or living a life of perfection, then you will live a very unrelatable and lonely life.
Mhm.
Like, and so
Yeah.
I think that when it comes to coaching and when it comes to being able to distill down how to create good habits and how to create transformation and how to create sustainable change, it's almost the humanness, it's almost the failure that you're constantly going through. It is almost the unsavory bits that make you a better coach, because if you're paying attention, if you allow your ego a back seat and you remember that you too, have to put your pants on one leg at a time,
Mhm. Yeah.
that in and of itself, I think, is what helps me stay in connection with my community and with the people I coach, is that um, humility and curiosity go a really long way.
Yeah, agreed. Absolutely agreed. It's interesting because basically that relatability people learn by either example, and they learn best when they feel that they are a part of the person that is teaching them, and that there is something in your story which can reflect well on them, and that they can see that there is a progression that gives them hope that that might be possible for them as well, in addition to being able to just generally relate. Coaching is almost, to me, also a form of mentorship, where someone is shoulder to shoulder with you. It's hard to be shoulder to shoulder if you've never been in those trenches, or if you've never, felt that particular issue or decline or thing that they're working with. I wanted to find out who has influenced your leadership style the most. Maybe it's even who you follow for stage engagements. I've seen an incredibly well prepared speech, and a lot of people, they want to go further in life, but it's okay. My next thing is being on stage. Gee, that seems unhackable. How would I do that? And so I'm very curious to know, what was your first speaking engagement like? How did you get into that? And, what resources did you pull on, or maybe whose coattails were you looking at when you made that, that first foray into it?
Yeah, so I got into real estate 10 years ago. And like week one, my boss at the time was like, Chelsea, you have to go to Bold, which is a Keller Williams program. It's 7 weeks long. It's very rah-rah, very motivational. And I was like 24, 25 at the time. And I just thought, like, this is the coolest job on earth. Like, I could care less about real estate, truly. I didn't care about showing houses. I didn't care about making money. I just like saw the dude on stage who was like, "What's your dream, Susan?" And she's like, "I just want to pay for my kids' college." And I was like, "That's a cool job. Like, I want that job." Like, that was that, I think, was the moment where public speaking and having an awareness of the impact that you could make on somebody's life in just a brief moment, the briefest of moments, could change the entire trajectory. To me, that was like witnessing magic. Like, it was the
Yeah.
coolest thing. And so I kind of have been doing real estate uh as a vehicle to that, because when you are in real estate, you better your communication, you expand your network, you have the finances to invest in speaking. Like, that's the thing about speaking that people don't realize about our industry, is that most real estate speakers do not get paid. We do not get paid. We
Mm-hmm.
book our flights, we pay for our hotel, we go and we show up, we pour out, and then we get the opportunity to promote coaching, or we get the email list to promote our services afterwards, or we get,
Yeah.
something to that extent. But a good majority of real estate speakers are doing it because they want to help their community, because they want to help their network, but also because they're in a financial position to. And so when it comes to like public speaking, Bold was the origin. When it comes to who I've become as a human and as a leader, Dustin Runyon has, with zero, this isn't an understatement, he has impacted my life in a way that um, I am unrecognizable. I
Um,
met Dustin in 2020, I believe. That summer I was like I was turning 30. And My partner of 9 years was cheating on me. I
Wow.
was the heaviest I'd ever been. I was an alcoholic. I was smoking. I found out I had breast tumors. I had a really toxic like relationship with my family, and just it was like everything all at once within a month.
Yeah.
And he helped me re-identify who I want to be and the gaps in which how I was showing up and the stories that I had around avoiding all of my problems and focusing on other people's.
Yeah.
And without his leadership and without his like radical candor, I wouldn't be here in front of you today. So I have a lot of gratitude for Dustin. Um, I would say that he's probably the biggest influence in my life.
That
Yeah.
is incredible. Yeah, and I don't know that I'm aware of Dustin. I will just say that it's incredible that he was able to get you through that year, those moments. And what I really heard is you did not do that alone. And even if you had, you would not, you credit that you would not have had the results that you have today, and be able to turn such misfortune, so many difficulties into the person you are today, which I'm sure is stronger for it, but not because of the difficulties so much as what you were able to create, out of that, that hard time. And that's because you had some wisdom that was able to be brought out of you from Dustin. That's incredible. And it is frequent that I hear that when people are at a certain level, they're able to suddenly leapfrog years into the future vision of themselves or even create a completely new vision is because they got help. They accessed some outside influence that was able to create a massive difference in them. I have had multiple, and then yeah, multiple guests on this show have said really the same. And for you, that was Dustin. What for other women, and or just people in general, you kind of mentioned self-neglect is
Mm.
not a sustainable path to success. Can you talk a little more about that?
Yeah. So one of the things that Dustin helped me realize was I had this cycle of self-betrayal that I just couldn't seem to break out of. And self-betrayal was the most visible for me in my alcoholism. I'm 4 years
Mhm.
sober. And when
Can I
you,
just stop and congratulate you for that? Because that is hard won, and it's extremely powerful in how it can shift every single thing about your life,
yeah.
along with anything that's really pulling you backward on the regular. And so I just want to acknowledge you for that.
Thank you. Well, and the thing about drinking, like everybody experiences alcohol on a spectrum, right?
Hmm.
And so the thing about drinking for me is that it felt like an unconscious decision. It felt like I had a bad day, I needed to drink. I had a great day. I needed to drink. I had happy hour with a friend. I needed to drink. And the one drink turned into five drinks, turned into blackout, it turned into the next day a hangover and what I call affectionately the booze blues.
Yeah.
And what people don't realize about alcohol is that it quite literally changes your chemistry in your brain. And
Hmm.
so when you are ingesting alcohol on a regular basis at great quantities, your mind becomes seeped in negativity, in depression, in anxiety. And I had all of these thoughts of like, what a POS I am. I'm never going to be able to do this. I'm always going to be fat. I'm always going to be this. I am mediocre, blah, blah, blah. Like, I am the poor kid from blah, blah, blah. Like, every day I had that alcohol cycle of, thoughts happening in my mind. And when all your thoughts are negative, your beliefs become negative. And when your
Yeah.
beliefs become negative, your life becomes negative. And so, really, when I'm looking at making a change, the first place I start is like, what are my thoughts? Like, what are my thoughts around this? What evidence do I need to create to have new beliefs? Like sometimes we look backwards and we're like, we don't have any evidence of being successful. I don't have any evidence of being disciplined. I don't have any evidence of being consistent. Well, then I need to go create it, right? I need to go make new evidence of what I'm capable of, make new evidence of what I can do, make new evidence of what the future may hold. And so, in that, changing our beliefs, you then change your actions. And when you've done it long enough, then you end up being a crazy person who runs a marathon last year, right? So, I think that that's really when it comes to the cycle of self-betrayal, it's acknowledging where you are aware something needs to be different, where you are breaking your promises, and why you're continuously breaking your promises. Because on some level, it satisfies something within you. Whether it satisfies making yourself right about how you'll never amount to anything, or if it satisfies the chaos that you grew up with, as a kid, and now stability and structure is terrifying. Like it's going to satisfy something, and if you can become aware of that and become aware of what action needs to take place to change it, then you can do anything. And I really believe that.
Yeah, and I'm there with you as well. It's really, when it comes down to being able to create that self-belief, one success begins to create a legacy of success, which you can lean back on and then go forward believing in a different version of yourself. And, so much of what you said is so powerful. And can I just touch on running the marathon last year, right? This is
Mhm.
something I might have seen, on your socials. This was outside of your comfort zone. And by the way, just to touch really quickly on comfort zone, like you said, sometimes chaotic life, if you grew up in a chaotic environment, or even poverty for that matter, if you grew up in a poverty environment, it's not to say or belittle someone's financial situation. But there is this thing in our brain that goes, this is normal, this is comfortable, watch out, there's something new around the corner, we fear new. And maybe it's back to like poison berries in a forest where, we were able to survive partly off of fearing new things, which perhaps could harm us, back in the caveman days. But that is now on overdrive and fears every new job, every new relationship. And then there's that pattern thinking like, well, what if it's like that other bad relationship, or
Mm.
whatever? And those things can stop us. But could you tell me a little bit about this marathon last year?
Oh yeah. So my whole family is what we affectionately call big boned. And so like fitness was never really a part of the equation. And in 2021, I started doing Pilates, but I kind of hit a plateau. And then I started dating someone and they were a runner. So to be cute, I was like, oh, I'll run too. And it ended up like being one of the best decisions I've ever made because in joining them in running, I started going to a bunch of run clubs. I made new friends. The friends, my best friend now, Claire, she saw me running and she was like, you could do Hood to Coast. I'm like, how many miles is Hood to Coast? And she's like, oh, 17, 14. It's like, Claire, I run once a week, 4 miles. She's like, nah, you got it. You're strong. You're stubborn. You'll do great. So I did Hood to Coast, and people train like a year for Hood to Coast. Like they like it is a quite the endeavor. You're sleep deprived, you got to fuel, what have you. And after that, I kind of got the bug. And so I did my first half marathon, and then I was like, man, I wonder if I could do a full. And I was severely undertrained. I think I was only running like twice a week. But I finished and I wasn't injured and I went for a bike ride like the next day. And so my goal was not necessarily to be the fastest, but to have the most fun and to be strong. And I achieved that. And I might run endurance again, but for right now, I'm just having fun with it. And I credit a lot of it to who's around me, my community. They are
Yeah.
quite encouraging, and we have a lot of fun together. So
That's incredible. Really talk about getting out of your comfort zone. And I really love the friend that said, no big deal, you've got this.
yeah,
Because basically you were expressing limitations and she was going, no, like there are no limitations. And I believe in you. Don't we all need more friends like that? That's incredible. I love that because that's actually really powerful just in the moment. It's almost
yeah.
like we need someone following us around just saying that. And actually, that person could be ourselves. So fantastic. What are three non negotiables that you live by when you are scaling a business or your personal capacity? Basically you talk about tactical systems and things like that. So, you're suddenly getting quite busy. Maybe you've got speaking engagements, maybe you've got new coaching clients. How do you navigate that? What are some non-negotiables just on the granular level that allow you to manage the chaos, stay organized, do whatever you need to do to be the best you that you can be?
Yeah, the first one is from Brene Brown. Clear is kind. So
Okay.
if my life has changed, I do not wait for other people to recognize it has changed. I tell them up front how I can show up. Like, hey, my response times, you're used to an hour. It might be by the end of the day. Or like my family knows no one gets 8 hours of my time. My aunt invited me to the beach a couple weeks ago and my mom laughed. And my aunt was like, why are you laughing? She's like, Chelsea's not going to the beach. She's like, "What do you mean she's not going to the beach? She doesn't like the beach?" And she's like, "She doesn't really care for it, but also it's 2 hours out. Then y'all are going to sit on the beach for 3 to 4 hours, and then you're driving back for 2 hours. She does not have 8 hours for a beach trip. Like, that's not, she'll spend a dinner with you. She'll like take you out for whatever, but she's not spending 8 hours on the beach. I can tell you that right now. And so I think that clear is the kindest thing you can do for the people
Mhm.
you love and for your clients. I think that uncommunicated expectations are the greatest downfall of any relationship. I see it all the time with transaction coordinators. I see it all the time with agents. They're mad that their client called them at 9 p.m. Did you tell them not to? Like, did you tell them that you're not available at 9 p.m.? And if they're still calling you, did you do your part in not answering and holding your boundary? Or did you cave and, not support your own standard and now you resent them for calling your bluff? Right? So I think that that's step one, is to like reassess all expectations, reassess all communication, be as clear as you possibly can be. Don't leave anyone guessing. Don't be passive aggressive. Like, be direct. Say what you mean what you say. The second thing is creating multiple wins. Whenever I'm scaling, I try to make sure that I'm winning more than once on any project. So I don't do things where there isn't a good ROI. And I mean, even in tasks, right? Like if there's something that, like, for example, I had my own real estate team and I had my own transaction management company. And people would ask me, like, why would you keep transaction coordinating when you're selling, 50 houses, 20 houses a year? Isn't that a waste of your time, a waste of your skill set? Like that's, not the highest and best use of your time. Number one, they don't know my systems. Number two, they don't know the level of assistance I have in place. But number three, if I'm only selling, let's say 20 houses a year or 50 houses a year, and I have an assistant, is she going to be sharp every time I have a pending? No. If it is, inconsistent, like we got 3 this month, 2 next month, 4 next, I have an assistant who's not being fully utilized. It makes sense if I want the best of the best on my team to keep them occupied in that position, right? So creating multiple, I get more income. We make sure that our people are, sharp and being utilized. Like that's the kind of decision making that I think really helps, is looking at it from a perspective of how many times am I winning on this decision? And if it's once, it's not the right decision.
So good. Just tons of good stuff there. Uncommunicated expectations. There's been something I've said for a long time, which is over communicate. The basic rule in corporate business, over communicate. It's an email plus a text plus a call or whatever, because if one of those channels doesn't get to the customer or to the back office where they needed to know something, like don't call that customer at a certain time or, whatever, then at least one of those things is hopefully going to make it through the chaos and work. And then creating the multiple wins and looking at that from an ROI perspective. Absolutely love that. That's total gold. What does the next evolution of Chelsea Wright look like? What is that current star that you're shooting for, that maybe is unspoken, spoken? Is it more of this? Is it, what's next for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's such a good question. I think that for me personally, I'm newly single, which is very exciting. And so I really feel like I'm on this journey of returning to joy and returning to uh kind of that like experimentation stage of what habits do I want to create for myself and what kind of life do I want to create for myself? Because I think that when you get into a relationship, you start to create this shared vision
Hmm.
and certain things are then left off the table. You're like, well, I probably can't do that because we're both in agreement to do this. And so I'm really in this fun, like dream state, but also execution stage. And I know that that's not really a helpful answer because it's really vague, but it's honest. Like I
Yeah.
am in this really fun place where I get to kind of redefine myself all over again and figure out where my priorities are. And I think one of the biggest priorities tactically is just selling more houses. I've been really busy this summer, praise God, and I know that that's not the case for everyone. And so I'm very grateful for my past clients and for all the referrals that I get from agents in other states. Um, but yeah, that's kind of where I'm at is like how many closings can we stack to fuel the dreams of the future
Yeah.
and reevaluate what this next version of myself looks like. So,
I love it. It sounds like a period of pure creation. When you
mm,
said you were newly single, that was literally my first thought was, oh, possibility. How fun is that?
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Well, folks, I just want to thank you, Chelsea, for joining us today. I really appreciate having had this discussion. You are nothing but a bright, shining star. I love every interaction with you, and just being able to get a glimpse of, what is behind the scenes and be able to hear some of your wisdom today, I think will inform a lot of people and watch them rise as well. Well, folks, that's it for today's podcast. Thank you so much for joining Women Who Rise, the success podcast for ambitious women. And we look forward to sharing incredible takeaways with you from this episode and from others. If you would like to like and subscribe and join us on all the channels in which we are represented, we look forward to bringing you more incredible content every week so that you can rise in your own lives and careers. Again, thank you so much. Heather Mansy, signing off. Hi, this is Heather Mansy with Women Who Rise. We just had Chelsea Wright today, and she gave us an incredible session with multiple takeaways. I wanted to share just a few things with you now. Basically, she talked about having chaos in your early life. You can actually sculpt that into maybe wanting to be able to create a situation for yourself, either choosing a job with structure or, as Chelsea did, being able to choose her own job and being an entrepreneur so she could create and mold a structure around her, knowing that she was ultimately the person responsible moving forward. She had a really great quote from her mom at that time. It's not what happened, but it's how it was perceived. Basically, she recognized early in life she had a ton of energy, and she looked at how she could take that into her next, world, and how she could create from a circumstance coming out of high school in 2008, when basically jobs were, very few and far between. And she had to look at that situation, and instead of perceiving it with negativity, she perceived it as an opportunity. And she perceived her energy, which was a bit too much at times, in early life situations, and perceived that as also a benefit that she could embrace, and she could wrap herself around that and literally create opportunities for herself to use that energy, to use that lack of, day jobs or whatever in 2008, and to be able to perceive that situation in a way that would empower her to create from scratch and create the situation that would give her stability and, systems that she would thrive on throughout her life. She also found that being relatable equals being impactful. She found that her ability to be on stage was greatly informed by the fact that she had so many experiences, which were, trials and tribulations, which would make it difficult for various things that she was up to in her life, but yet it made her so much more relatable. So her imperfection was actually the thing that perfectly poised her to be on stage. And that was something that she understood early on. She also talked about communicating expectations, saying that uncommunicated expectations are what she found to be the greatest downfall of business. And so again, just really, really going granular with the idea that every single thing needs to be communicated, especially those expectations from your clients. If you are scaling, if you're becoming busier, make sure your client knows. It may be half a day to get back to you instead of 10 minutes, or whatever it may be at a lesser time of year, or a lesser time in your career. She also mentioned being clear is kindness. She talked about Brene Brown, a quote or book from Brene Brown there. And then she also talked about the joys of finding a new hobby, being able to take up running, being able to create entire new social spheres from something that she felt maybe she was not mechanically predisposed to doing, but why not embrace it and try it? And she started small. She enjoyed it quite a bit. And then she actually was able to take on other goals, saying that it wasn't her goal to be the fastest. It was her goal to have the most fun. And I think if we're taking on anything new, whether it's at work, in the social world, in our hobbies, whatever it is, I think that's a fabulous goal to lead with. And then lastly, she talked about creating multiple wins. So 2 absolute non-negotiables for her in business: create multiple wins, multiple ways in which you can see ROI, a return on investment from whatever you are up to. If there's not at least, 2 or more ways that any given idea is going to contribute to your bottom line or to your business goals, or to, in fact, maybe your life goals or your career goals, then for her, she says that's a no-go. And then last, she said great systems, because again, she talked about making sure that if you have great systems, you keep those people busy, you keep them employed, and that you do in fact have great systems, great assistants, and great things that you can fall back on in your business that are giving you a competitive advantage, and then making sure that you are maintaining those things. And that in fact allows you to make decisions and take on goals, which might look like negative ROI or a bad, idea to someone else's business. But if you have those things, maybe your secret sauce is something else. Maybe it's a literal secret sauce, or maybe like Chelsea, you have great systems and great assistance behind you. And by the way, if you need help with assistance, obviously we can get you some VAs for that. So again, kudos to Chelsea for such an amazing episode. Like and subscribe, and we will see you on future episodes. Heather Mansy signing off.